I think, it's been a challenging year for every company and also for ABB, of course. And I think it feels good that we seeing that the markets are coming back. There are, of course, still some end markets that are still challenging, but there are also a lot of lights in the tunnel. So I think it's a solid ending of a challenging year from our perspective. And I think moving forward, it's of course difficult to predict. The pandemic is still there. On the other hand, we've seen things coming back, and we are pretty optimistic for next year.
Obviously, the big corporate action for 2020 was the carve-out of the grids business. Can I ask you, as you now look at the shape of the business for full year 2021, are you happy with what you see, or are we going to see any further corporate action?
I think the year of 2020 was building a strong foundation for the quite ambitious targets we have going forward. So, we have the whole new organization set up, which is, as you know, built on the decentralized structure. We have looked into our portfolio management. We decided to spin off 3 businesses, which will start during this year. And we put in our long-term sustainability targets, which are quite ambitious and we are excited about. So it's been a tough year, but also an exciting year for ABB, because I think we're in good position now to deliver going forward.
I want to ask you about one of the lines in the release, very high up today, pointing out that input costs rose. I want to know what you're seeing there, whether that's just a short-term issue around bottlenecks and some restrictions, or whether it signals something more longer-term about inflation, as we saw yesterday across the Eurozone, that there was an 11-month pickup, a high to 11 months on the CPI for the Eurozone. Are you sensing that there's some element of inflation in your numbers?
No, I don't think so. I think they're pretty solid.
Unpick that for us, because you've highlighted the input cost rise, but then we want to know whether that's just a feature for this quarter, or whether it continues for the next couple of quarters.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that a lot of the material cost has of course gone up, and we've seen these rise during the year. Of course, we hedge our business, which means that some of those higher costs for material will come in slowly during next year, and of course they've been taking mitigated actions to of course meet that.
Bjorn, good to speak to you today. Look, if I look at your regional overview, Asia Middle East looks fantastic, orders up 28%. China looks fantastic, up 23% as well. Europe and the US look challenged as well. Tell me, how much of that is because of COVID and slower recovery from COVID, and how much of that is structural and intentional, i.e. those are your growth areas, the Middle East and Asia?
I think the whole year the second half of the year has really, accelerated the Chinese market, which is a big and important market for us. While we've seen more challenges in the North America, especially in certain segments, which is related to oil and gas and conventional power generation. But there are also segments doing quite well in this. I mean, for instance, electrification is doing well, motion is doing great there. Europe is a little bit a mixed bag. I think it kicked back, pretty good during autumn. And then we saw in the end of the year, as many of the lockdowns really got sharp him up. So I think ending the year was a little bit tougher in Europe. So we'll see what's going to happen going forward. But this year has started pretty good. So I think we feel comfortable about the expectation for next year.
Bjorn, can I just focus in again on electrification, and as you highlighted as one of the performing areas, you've mentioned that was one of the factors that bolstered operating margins. What we have seen so far topically this year for investors, a huge focus on sustainability and particularly around electric vehicles. What's making the difference here? Is the investor funds getting active? Is it a new US president who's doubling down on climate change? What do you make of what you're seeing out there in terms of the appetite to push forward on electrification?
I think electrification is well positioned, and I think when you look at ABB, it's been one of the strongholds of the history of the company. Today we build up many areas within electrification, but EV charging is one of our strong parts also, which is growing very fast, and where we are actually market leader today. So there are some of these areas which are really being affected by the sustainability drive that is taking place in the world. So well positioned for that, I think.